What is up, guys? It is Quinn here, and in this video, I'm going to be talking about 5 big-name fantasy football players who have drastically underperformed through 4 weeks. So I feel like if, any of you guys have these players on your team, you probably think they've been, quote-unquote busts so far this season. They have not lived up to their ADP, and so I'm just going to be going through, their first 4 weeks, maybe explaining why they've been struggling, and then just kind of giving an opinion on whether or not I think these struggles are going to continue. Do I think they're going to, go back to the high price they were when you drafted them? Do I think you should hold on to them, trade them, hold them? So just kind of going through a breakdown of some of these, big time fantasy football players, and hopefully, ease your guys' minds a little bit, because I do think a lot of the players I'm talking about are guys that I'm going to recommend keeping on my team, and or going out and actually trying to trade for them, kind of buying low on these players. While you guys are watching, if you enjoy the content, please do me a huge favor, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. And if you have any fantasy questions, just drop those down below. I'll get back to every single person. But we're going to start it off at the running back position here, and it's going to be Dalvin Cook. So through 4 weeks, Dalvin Cook is the running back 27 in points per game. He's averaging 11.4 PPR points per game, and we were drafting Cook as a mid-tier running back 1. So getting, high-end running back 3 production out of him so far, that's just not going to be living up to expectation. That is not going to cut it on your fantasy football rosters. Personally, I am not panicking here on Dalvin Cook. I'm still viewing him as a top 10 running back moving forward. When we look at his overall volume through 3 weeks, his rushing volume is still very, very strong despite being banged up. Early on in the season, Dalvin has dealt with an ankle problem. He's dealt with that dislocated shoulder thing again. So he's kind of been through the ringer early on. He has still gone for 17 or more carries in 3 of the first 4 games. Also, when you're looking at his touchdown production, he's only scored 1 time in 4 weeks. When you're looking at this Vikings offense, I think most people would consider them a good unit. I think they're about middle of the pack in terms of points per game. So there's no reason why their workhorse running back should only have 1 touchdown. He's kind of just gotten unlucky in that area. It's not like we have Alexander Mattison coming in and vulturing goal line carries. We did see Madison score on a 3rd and goal or a 3rd and long, but that's not a goal line opportunity. That's just a totally different kind of situation there. So like I said, I'm not panicking here on Dalvin Cook, and I actually think this is a strong opportunity to go out and try to buy Dalvin Cook. I think, maybe the owner's panicking. They're seeing some of these mid-round running backs ball out. So kind of offers that I'd be trying to throw out there. I think I'd be trying to capitalize on overperforming running back 2s, guys like Miles Sanders, Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Maybe you could throw a guy like Dameon Pierce in there, and then just kind of pair one of those running backs with a wide receiver 3, maybe an Allen Lazard, a Tyler Lockett, maybe a Terry McLaurin. Not super high on Terry moving forward. That may be a little much, in some people's leagues if you do have McLaurin as a starter, but kind of one of those overachieving running back 2s, the guys that are probably going to slot in as a mid to back end running back 2, and then just pairing them with a solid, potentially overperforming wide receiver 3. I think that's the kind of move you can put together to bring in Dalvin Cook. Another top running back I'm going to be talking about here is Alvin Kamara. And right now, Kamara is running back 44 in points per game. He's only played in 2 games, and so in those 2 games, he has put up a total of 14.9 PPR points. Like I said, he's missed the other 2 games. So through 4 weeks, he's given you 2 bad weeks, in your lineups, and then he's had to, be on the bench because he has not been playing. Once again, he was a guy who was drafted as a running back 1. He was more of a back-end RB1, RB9, RB10, RB11, RB12, somewhere in that range, but that was due to suspension concerns. If there was no suspension out here, Alvin Kamara would have been drafted right up there in that Dalvin Cook spot, around Dalvin Cook, around Derrick Henry, with those guys. I just kind of want to reframe this whole Alvin Kamara situation, because I truly think if Kamara played back-to-back games, week 1, week 2, he, only had that 14.9 points. I think people would be like, oh, that sucks. But no one's going to be overreacting saying, Kamara's not a running back 1. He's not a top 10 guy. Maybe some people would overreact because people do love to overreact. But just 2 bad games in a row, that's not going to kill someone in your lineup. You're not going to, be trying to sell them for low, all this stuff. It's the combination of having 2 rough performances and then also kind of getting hit with this unfortunate injury that has, I think, really lowered Alvin Kamara's fantasy value and has definitely lessened the confidence that people have in him. For me, Like I said, the 2 game sample size, he's banged up. I don't have any reason to believe that Alvin Kamara is not a locked and loaded top 10 fantasy running back moving forward. I think the offers I went through with Dalvin Cook, basically copy paste those. Also, going after Alvin Kamara. I was kind of updating my rest of season rankings, and the running back position as a whole is just like brutal to rank. You've got like Saquon, CMC at the top. Maybe you throw Jonathan Taylor in there. And then that next tier, you're looking at like Mixon, Eckler, Swift, Fournette, Kamara, Cook, Henry. It's all just like this big jumbled tier. So, maybe you can move up that tier. Maybe someone loves Eckler after his monster performance. Maybe you can, trade Eckler away, get a Kamara and another piece or another positional upgrade. So those are kind of the offers I'd be putting out for Alvin Kamara. Now, moving over to the one wide receiver I'm talking about, it is going to be Diontae Johnson. And full transparency, I was someone who was very in on Diontae Johnson. I believe I had him ranked right behind Michael Pittman. So I think he was my wide receiver 14 coming into the season. And through 4 weeks, he is the wide receiver 43, averaging 11.7 PPR points per game. Now, I'm just going to throw out, the same thing I talked about with Dalvin Cook. The touchdowns have been unlucky. There is only one player ahead of him in points per game. So there's 42 dudes ahead of him, right? Only one guy who's averaging more points per game has not scored a touchdown like Diontae Johnson, and that is Tyler Lockett. So even though this is a terrible offense, we're not expecting a ton of touchdowns out of Diontae Johnson. Not having scored one time, that's just plain unlucky. I feel like we can all kind of agree on that, especially when a dude is commanding a 29.1% target share. This is not a situation where Deontay's in a bad offense and his overall production is lacking. He's not commanding targets. 29.1% target share. That is an elite number. Just for reference, last year, Justin Jefferson was at a 29.9. We saw Jamar Chase at a 26.5. Stephon Diggs at a 25.8. So Diontae Johnson is commanding targets up with some of the best wide receivers in the NFL. Through 4 weeks, he's commanded double-digit targets in 3 games. So I do think Diontae Johnson is an elite buy low right now, especially coming after his first really down game of the season in terms of volume. And then we see Kenny Pickett come in. He's kind of feeding George Pickens. I even saw some people commenting, Pickens can be a start. They want to trade Diontae. They want to drop Diontae. Please do not be dropping Diontae Johnson. We cannot be reacting or overreacting to one half of Kenny Pickett in the lineup. We've seen multiple years of Diontae Johnson being a stud wide receiver, beating out other quality wide receivers like Juju Smith-Schuster, Claypool, his rookie and sophomore season. Claypool's kind of fallen apart, but as a rookie, people really did view him as a talented option. So I will not be throwing that away. I still fully expect Diontae Johnson to be the wide receiver 1 in this offense. I think he's a solid fantasy wide receiver 2 moving forward. And I actually think the Pickett thing is kind of good news here because, Mitch may have been force feeding them the ball, but there was no upside there. He was not going to be a top 10 guy with Mitch at quarterback. If Pickett hits and is a successful NFL quarterback, that's where Diontae Johnson is going to be finding his top 10 potential. So I'm still very, very in on Diontae Johnson. And if I didn't have him on almost all of my teams, he's someone I'd be going out and buying low on. Now, the tight end I'm going to be talking about for this video, you guys probably know what's coming here. It is Kyle Pitts, the wide receiver 20 in points per game, averaging 6.2 PPR points per game. So just straight up off the top, he has clearly been a wild disappointment. And at this point in the season, I talked about guys like Cook, Kamara. I still think they're locked in top 10 players. I still think those dudes could finish as running back 5, running back 6 in points per game. I think it's very, very unlikely that at this point in the season, Kyle Pitts is going to live up to his ADP. A guy who is being drafted just a round and a half after Travis Kelce, Mark Andrews. It seems incredibly unlikely that he is going to, live up to that draft price. However, at this point, he's someone I'm just going to be holding on to in my lineup because you probably drafted him 3rd, 4th round, and you were expecting elite tight end production. You probably passed up on some decent running backs, a Breece Hall. Maybe you passed up on a Jalen Waddle, another strong wide receiver, a Marquise Brown, someone like that. So you have that hole in your lineup. To me, it's not worth it to go out and sell Kyle Pitts low because if he doesn't hit, you're just taking a fat L in your lineup. And there are still some green flags here with Kyle Pitts, some glimmers of hope out there. He is still commanding targets at a very high level. He's fourth amongst tight ends in target share, fourth in target rate. He's second in air yards. This is all at the tight end position. Second in air yards, second in air yard share, also second in deep targets. He's first in ADOT and unrealized air yards, kind of pointing to the poor quarterback play. And so that all sounds great, right? Those numbers are super solid. And then you look at the actual production. 0 touchdowns. He's 20th in receptions and then 12th in receiving yards. And a lot of that just comes down to the poor passing attack of the Falcons. The utilization hasn't been great. Like his route participation is 74.5%, which for, your average Joe Schmo fantasy tight end, that's not terrible. But number 11 in the NFL for Kyle Pitts, when we know how talented he is, that is not going to get it done. His catchable target rate is only 59.1%. So a ton of red flags here. I think moving forward, he can definitely not be considered like a top 5 guy. But I do think if it clicks, it's going to click and Kyle Pitts is going to have some monster performances. So it's just a situation where I'm waiting it out. I'm not going to go out and sell him for a guy like, I don't know, who's like a back-end tight end one, like a Tyler Conklin. Because I just think like if he hits, your team is just going to be taken to another level than just kind of panicking, basically wasting like a 3rd or 4th round pick for a tight end who's going to give you like back-end tight end one production. And now on to the 5th and final player here. It is going to be Tom Brady. And Brady was someone who was drafted as a consistent top 10 quarterback. And through 4 weeks, he's averaging 15 points per game as the QB 17 here. And I have 0 concerns with Tom Brady. I could throw out some minor concerns for guys like Pitts. Well, Pitts has some major concerns, but like Diontae Johnson, there are minor concerns. Kamara, Cook, you would have liked to see production. You can completely rationalize, Tom Brady's struggles through 4 weeks. Brady's not a guy like Lamar Jackson, Kyler Murray, Jalen Hurts. He's not going to be producing on the ground. He gets basically 100% of his fantasy production, minus a few QB sneaks, through the air. So when you're looking at this offense and you see Evans gets ejected from a game, then gets suspended, Chris Godwin gets injured in week 1, misses 2 weeks, Julio Jones misses 2 weeks, Russell Gage is playing banged up the entire season, Donovan Smith misses time as a very strong offensive tackle, it makes sense why he's going to struggle and not put up big numbers. You drafted him to be the quarterback for an offense with a lot of solid weapons. Then we see in the first game with Evans and Godwin back, 385 yards, 3 touchdowns. I'm expecting top 10, top 8 production rest of season. I actually think I'm probably feeling better about Brady rest of season than where he was drafted. Like he was pretty firmly in that tier with like Burrow, Dak, Russ, Stafford was probably a little behind that. We've seen a lot of those dudes struggle. The guys kind of picked as back-end QB1s. Stafford's been horrendous. Russell Wilson, I just got done watching that Thursday night game, just atrocious. Dak obviously got hurt. Carr, Rodgers, Cousins, like these guys haven't been lighting up the stat sheet. So I think you firmly have those, mobile quarterbacks. You've got Lamar, you've got Josh Allen, you have Hurts, then you've got like Mahomes. I feel like I'm missing someone. Kyler could still be missing someone. But then I feel like Brady could totally slot in right there. It's probably between like Brady and Burrow at that next spot, assuming I'm not, just blanking on a solid quarterback. But for Brady, I have 0 concerns. If you're able to just straight up flip Tom Brady for an overachieving like a Jared Goff, I don't think anyone's going to trade like Geno Smith for Brady. But, those types of players, like the surprising quarterbacks who have put up decent production through 4 weeks, I'm expecting top 10, top 8, top 6 production out of Brady rest of season. So those are 5 big-name players who were probably considered busts at this point based on their production. Dalvin Cook, Alvin Kamara, Diontae Johnson, Kyle Pitts, Tom Brady. I feel like the general message of this video is don't be panicking on these guys, maybe except for Kyle Pitts, but he's still someone I'd be holding. The rest of them, they don't really have any glaring concerns in terms of their usage and just straight up may have been unlucky through 4 weeks of the season. But that is going to wrap it up for this one. If you guys enjoyed the video, hit that like, subscribe to the channel. As always, thank you guys for stopping by, and I will see you in the next one.